the home for a certain number of days, and they receive the treatment in a structured setting. Outpatient, of course, is in home, in the community, and they go to a particular location to receive their treatment. Also, the children are required on a weekly basis, at least, to provide drug screens.
It's important to note that some of the consequences are more lasting than others.
That we do with the police department, since a lot of heavy crack and heroin users or dealers will sell marijuana because of the penalties being less, what we have to do is to, for instance, if we get a hand-to-hand deal with someone with one baggie of marijuana, that's a 4-year felony. Whereas if they were just caught with that one baggie of marijuana, that would just be a misdemeanor. So what we do at narcotics is we do what we call buy and bust operation. That's where an undercover officer will actually go and purchase a bag of marijuana. And just that exchange for money or for nothing, to give if someone gives you a baggie of marijuana, that will constitute a felony rather than a misdemeanor for delivery of marijuana.
Because THC can stay in your system for so long, it can appear on drug tests, which can stop you from finding jobs. And in many states, people who are convicted of felonies automatically lose their right to vote.
Just about all the jobs are starting to test for marijuana, not only by urine, but also by your hair follicle. You know, they can pluck out a hair follicle and put it in the tube and tell what you did for the last year.
Light it up, smoke it up. I wanna stimulate my mind, so I took it up. Can I get a hit? Can I get a whoo? Give me that back.
You already heard weed inhibits cognition, your ability to process information. School is all about processing information, memorizing facts, and being able to analyze their significance. Learning formulas and how and when to apply them, it all relies on the ability, which is severely hampered by smoking weed.
Yes, I talk to my students on a regular basis about marijuana drug uses and the consequences of using those drugs.
Nationwide programs try to educate young teens about the dangers of using marijuana, alcohol, and other drugs. Marijuana has a more severe effect on the brains of young users than it does on the brains of older users because it affects the brain's development. According to a University of Michigan study, the younger that users are when they begin smoking marijuana, the more likely they are to go on to abuse other drugs. Frequently, teens who use lose interest in everything but the drug. That means their friends, family, appearance, hobbies, and schoolwork.
And when you're smoking blunts and you're smoking weed, it affects your behavior, it affects your attitude, it affects your grades. And as a result, we need to deal with the problem, the root of the problem that exists in our community.
According to a 2007 study for the Health Education Research Journal, teens who smoke marijuana are more likely to have poor grades both before they start smoking and after. The study suggests that teens who don't do well academically are drawn to smoking weed, and that once they begin, it accelerates the deterioration of their grades.
But students who use it consistently, their grades usually decrease.
Students who use marijuana are less likely to graduate than their peers who don't use. On average, students who don't graduate can expect to make $7,000 less per year than their peers who do hold a diploma. Over an average lifetime, students who hold a professional degree can expect to make $3 million more than those who don't graduate from high school.
With the low graduation rates and high use of marijuana, we really are working against ourselves in terms of improving both employment and our academic performance.
After all, I was nice and bold, but I come to practice weed senate. Report card like the speed limit. 55, 55, expellable. If nice, they make sure that you're eligible.
Perhaps one of the most complicated areas surrounding the debate about marijuana is sports. There are undeniable health consequences that can affect an athlete's ability to play. There are also, however, interesting societal considerations to take into account when thinking about weed in sports.
I did smoke marijuana, if I believe. It really didn't affect me because basically we're taught as a teen, like it's all mental or whatnot. So you had a mindset to play, you're gonna push your body regardless.
Coach Sherman disagrees. All of the negative effects of marijuana on a user's health are compounded in athletics because memory, awareness, and lung function are especially important.
I mean, don't do it. It's not good for you. It's not good on your lungs from a conditioning standpoint. It can put an extreme damper on you financially. You look at some of the additional long-term effects of it, with it possibly being cancerous.
Only way to ensure that athletes aren't using banned substances is random drug testing. Drug testing helps to ensure the health of athletes who routinely put themselves in physically demanding situations, and to ensure that athletes don't have an unfair advantage over others by using banned substances and procedures such as testosterone, steroids, and blood doping.
I do agree with drug testing in college and high school in terms of on a sports level. For one, on a high school level, youth at that age don't need any additional distractions. And drugs actually impair their whole thinking process. It can turn a day that was initially supposed to be productive once they woke up that morning to a day where they actually got nothing accomplished.
Coach Sherman cites not only health concerns as a reason for student athletes not to use drugs. Having to learn new systems of play and new playbooks when moving from high school to college requires memorization. Because THC affects short-term and thus long-term memory, it can dramatically affect a player's ability to adapt to new surroundings.
Athletic responsibilities that they may have in terms of having to learn thick playbooks that they may not have had to learn in high school, getting used to a totally different athletic system, so to speak, and it impairs that. It puts a hindrance on that. Now, in terms of the actual performance on the field, marijuana causes joint problems. It causes stiffness. It causes you to go left when you may have wanted to go right.
What's more is that the NCAA, the association responsible for governing college athletics, has some very stiff penalties for drug use. A positive test can result in a year's suspension and complete loss of eligibility for multiple offenses. The NCAA recommends that athletes know everything that goes into their bodies because they will be held responsible for all substances which show up in their blood and urine. This includes substances ingested in all supplements. For this reason, SoFuel appeals are granted. For an appeal to be granted, a student must prove that he or she did not know that they were ingesting a banned substance, and that there was no reasonable way he or she could have known. In the last 7 years, there have been athletes in every major sport who have tested positive for marijuana use. Of all the appeals, there were only 2 granted. Even with such stiff penalties, student athletes continue to use marijuana and continue to test positive. With the damage it can do to a student's athletic career and health, why do so many athletes continue to smoke? The answer may lie in the people whom they admire and the mixed messages that they receive.
So they're always going to look up to certain professional athletes and view them as being that person that they would like to